Is there a meeting for the ladies or is it all?
Yeah.
Because she was really great. I was probably as well. Appropriately, what she would have.
All of it was. It was not.
That's what I was.
I wasn't really. I'm not going to put it on there again. It was all live. And some of the we're recording live. We've had problems with the broadcast. They've been dropping in and out. I'm trying to fix that. That's why I'm on my phone all the time ready. I'm replying to people saying the broadcast has dropped out and check it. We need somebody. We need somebody that's on reception. We need somebody to bring it up. Bring it up every day because I know you've got Virgin already downloaded it yours. Bring it every day. Open it up. We can sit somebody else. Tinkle with it.
Yeah, I know.
So if you bring it everywhere, just leave it in your car, check. That way we can load it up, so you don't have to call in PowerPoints. And get someone else to do it as well. And I'm looking up the kids to do this as well. I'm really going to take a break. I'm really sorry. I'm not here, I'm waiting to walk out and put the program on the kids. Like, just see how things are going and play according to the Bible. The kids are being mindful. Do you know shorten the service? The Ashkenazi way of psalm. That's fine. In situations like that, look at what's going on. Try and shorten it. I mean, it was great. Don't get me wrong. Maybe the communal program we could do that. Maybe before we start or something, before the kids, because Liam and Joshua real peoples. And now they're at they're across the road. I told them, I told them not to go. I just get the feel of what's happening around you guys. The way you play it is it's your way all the time, no matter what. That's how I play it. And it's a good thing because it means you get things done. But to a certain degree, you may have to just curtail some things. My teaching was probably a bit too long on incense, you know what I mean? Yeah, they're just a handful. And I mean, I don't know. Yeah. We're doing good. We're doing good.
Anyway, no, it's not up to me. All right.
This is a big one. Small into the camera.
Waiting on
Doesn't want discipline.
He doesn't want to You need to talk. I know that. I realize that. And what I'm saying, even if they did, it will be like nothing. It's all playing. Check his bank account.
Well, I'm just saying, what because of the,
That's what I'm agree on how live today, so we have to live. So it's like, how can I make more of myself? So it's so
how much of the Egyptians was incorporated into the thing? That's the key question. Because that's my question, my really question. I'm having the book, I have to take it to the next.
I like that. When the feeling at the time, the term in Hebrew for name is set. Shem means name. Name does not mean what we think it means. It actually means character. So therefore, in other words, whatever name you use doesn't mean just one. If you're not displaying the character, however you want to say. I was watching one and he said in the ancient Hebrew, Yah, Ha, Ra. The letters are already worked out. Because they say, well, how come we say that? They idea, number one. But I mean, it's not that arguing about it. It's about presenting character of that.
This
All right, everybody. We'll get started. Please return to your seats, and we'll get started on part 2 of the abomination that makes desolate. This is a teaching on the beast, or the image of the beast that is erected in the holy place in the third temple. And we're going to be looking, so most of the stuff we're looking at appears in Revelation chapter 13. So if you want to put your finger in Revelation 13, we are dealing principally with things that occur during that chapter. And we also are looking at things from the book of Daniel. So we'll be going to the book of Daniel, and we'll be going to the various Gospels. We'll look at the Gospel of Matthew, Gospel of Luke. But what I wanted to do today was to wrap up what we looked at last week. Wrap up, review, and then go in to look at a little bit more of what else we need to know. And so from the image of the beast, or the abomination that makes desolate, the teaching will naturally go into the area of the mark of the beast, what the mark of the beast is, how we're to respond to it, what is it with this mark, can we know what it is, and all this sort of stuff. And hopefully these 2 sessions are going to equip us to be able to be more informed as to how things are actually going to play out and what's going to happen, and make the right decisions when the time comes. That's why we study eschatology. That's why we study biblical prophecy, is so that we're suitably equipped to make the right decisions when they come. That's why we observe all the high holidays, the weekly Sabbath, the Rosh Chodesh, the monthly Rosh Chodesh. That's why we observe Yom Kippur. That's why we observe tabernacles, because all these things are actually putting us on the time frame of Yahweh's plan for man's salvation. And so you will become a believer who begins to know what day it is. Because prior to that, you might have been a believer, you might have had a very deep love for Yahweh, but you didn't know what day it was. You know, you ever heard the expression, "Oh, don't go and ask him, he doesn't know what day it is." Well, you were that person. I was that person. We might have had a genuine love for the Creator, but we didn't know what cycle to operate in that affection and that love.
Didn't even know his name.
There's a time for everything. There's a time to be intimate with your wife, and there's a time to be at work. You know, there's a time to get the car serviced, and there's a time to get your clothes washed, and there's a time to play with your kids. All these, as Solomon says, there is a time and a place for everything under the sun. Amen. And so this is what these lessons hopefully will also do for you. Otherwise, what's the point of learning about them except to just get an intellectual tickle? All right. So last week we learned that the abomination of desolation spoken about in Matthew 13:14, or the image of the beast as it's referred to in Revelations 13 and 15, refers not only to the statue of Zeus, erected by Antiochus Epiphanes. This is part 4, by the way. This is what we know and what it means, what we know means. So Antiochus Epiphanes, which has been prophesied about in the book of Daniel, he came to power after Alexander the Great passed away, and he was a very, 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 very bad person, putting it lightly. And he did all sorts of abominable things, and his ideology was that he was an incarnation of the god Zeus. He thought he was the flesh representation of Zeus. Where have we seen that before? And he wanted Torah to be removed from Yahweh's people completely. So unlike Adolf Hitler, who wanted to wipe out the Jews and exterminate them from the face of the earth, Antiochus Epiphanes, he was happy that the Jews to stay and live as human beings. But he wanted anything about them that was innately Jewish or Torah observant to be completely and utterly alienated and removed from them. So you would get money, you would get a house maybe, you would get office, if you would renounce Yahweh and give up the Torah. And many Jews actually did do that. And he was full of himself, so he made this statue of Zeus in his image, and he erected it over the altar of burnt offering, and he made the Israelites bring sacrifices of pork flesh and other unclean animals and actually partake of the unclean flesh in ritualistic ceremonial format. And this was a foreshadow or a typology of what the negative Messiah, who the world calls the Antichrist, which we know to be the Moshiach Neged, the negative Messiah, is what he's going to do in the time to come. But he's going to go one better than Antiochus Epiphanes. He's going to actually make the statue come to life. So he's going to fly in the face of our entire makeup as believers, that we do not render any service to idols or use them as conduits for service. Because in Psalms they have eyes but they cannot see, they have ears but they cannot hear, they have mouths but they cannot speak, they have nose but they cannot smell. And this is going to completely turn those types of passages on their ear, so to speak, when the Nabi Sheker, the false prophet, and the Moshiach, the anti-Messiah, give life to this statue and cause the statue to get up and stand, and then the statue has the power to call down fire from heaven. And that is a revenge move on Elijah, because Elijah will be up and running at that time, and he'll be with us in the wilderness, or be ready to meet us in the wilderness, because we're to flee into Selah from Judah when we see the abomination of desolation standing where it ought not to be, in the holy place. That's for those that are already there. So we pray that we're already going to be there, because those of us that aren't already to be there when that happens, we're going to have a real tough time for the next 3.5 years. Because we've got 7 years. And they're split into 3.5 portions, and one lot is good and the other's bad. We see that with Joseph, with the time in Egypt, where there is a plenty in the time in Egypt where there is a great famine. This is the thing of typology, things that are repeated patterns. History does repeat, ladies and gentlemen, and it's meant to be for our benefit. Okay, so the third temple will be rebuilt, the negative Messiah, with both images bearing with the image bearing his likeness, like Antiochus. He brings his to life. According to Judaism, this image that has been brought to life is known as a golem. A golem is referred to in Psalm 136, verse, somewhere in Psalm 136, and it refers, David refers to his unshapen form, which is Galamet, which is golem, singular, which means something that isn't completed. Yeah? So that's what it is. That's what a golem is. And according to medieval Jewish mysticism, where a ritual's involved, a human being, if he knows enough Torah, he's able to create a man, but he was without Yahweh's breath. You can't breathe the same ruach that Yahweh can into Adam. You can make a person, you can make that person have a sense of life, but they will not have a soul. And it is against Torah to do that. We're not permitted to do that.
An avatar.
Like an avatar. And actually very, very good analogy, because both Antiochus and the negative Messiah do see that these replications of them, these anatomatons, if you will, are like avatars of themselves in a sense. Yeah. And you could argue that Yeshua is an avatar of Yahweh in a way. There's an argument. I'm not saying that that's the case, but there's an argument for that. We learned the letter Tav, the mark of the beast, but Tav means sign or signature. And the Tav is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and therefore it is Yahweh's seal or his signature. So the sign that was given to Cain was a Tav, and those that were marked in Ezekiel to be avert from the destruction were given a Tav, a sign, a signature. And we know that the Tav in the tongues of fire format of Hebrew, not the ancient Paleo-Hebrew, but the tongues of fire form, is made up of 3 vavs. The numerical value of vav is 6. So we can see here, vav is a numerical value of 6, 6, 6, 6. And that makes the tav, the mark. Okay? This is the mark of the beast from a Hebraic perspective, not from a Western point of view, or a Russian point of view, or a Swahili point of view. It's from that's all we care about. We only care about Hebraic perspective when we're trying to actually decipher anything from the Torah. Here we have the Hebrew word emet, aleph, mem, and tav, and the aleph is wiped away from the golem's forehead, which would spell the Hebrew word met, which means death, and the golem deactivates or shuts down or dies or turns to dust. So there's this emphasis on our forehead being kind of this conduit for life. That is why in Scripture, quite frequently, there are seals placed on the foreheads of those who are righteous. The 144,000, for example. And what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be equipping you to, when you start to hear this rhetoric, in some years to come from now, you are going to be hearing ministers, preachers, rabbis, messianic rabbis, ones that know their Hebrew very well and have lived in Israel. They're going to begin to groom you and condition you to be ready to accept the seal of Jesus Christ or Yeshua or whatever it is. Because indeed in the book of Revelations there does come a time where Yahweh does seal his anointed. And so we see Hasatan, it's a preemptive move. So we've got to be very careful. That's why it's so important to know what day it is, because if you don't know what day it is, you're going to make the wrong move at the wrong time and go, and we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we're equipped to do the right thing at the right time. Now, over here in the corner, we have 666 added together makes 18, which is the numerical value of the Chi, which is life. Okay, so the Tav is made up of the Vavs, which equal life. So this is a life-giving sign. Cain was given life. Anybody who sees Cain and sees this mark will know that I own you and they will not touch you, or I'll visit vengeance on them sevenfold. Yeah? Is everybody okay with that so far? Does everybody understand what we've just looked at so far? It's a lot of information. I could finish now, and that'd be enough. But there's just too much to go through. And it's too little time. Okay, so we learned that the image of the beast has a likeness of the negative Messiah, which we will be, interestingly, you're being groomed all your life to now. You're being groomed to accept what Yeshua or Jesus looks like. Probably one of the most influential images of Jesus that we have is from the Shroud of Turin. I actually have I didn't read it, I saw a book that purports to have an actual photograph of Jesus. And he appeared to somebody during prayer, and they asked him if they could photograph him, and he said yes. And the cover of this book actually has a photo of Jesus on it. I'll try and find it and I'll show you next week. It's just amazing. And it's the typical type of Catholic type of look. He does look a little bit Jewish. He's not the full blue eyes and blonde hair, but it's that classic look. But bear in mind that the negative Messiah isn't going to be blue-eyed and blonde hair. They're smarter than that because they know you're smarter than that. He's going to look Jewish. He's going to have that classic look of that Jewish look about him. Even the Shroud of Turin, if you look carefully on the Shroud of Turin, it has pails. It has the earlocks. And that's all part of getting you. The Shroud of Turin, if you look carefully.
Seen another version.
Yeah, it's got earlocks on it. Yeah, you gotta look carefully. It sounds like you've got a copy, but I don't know. Give me a look.
I'm ex-Catholic. There's the Golem. Wasn't it what's on it?
Well, actually, we're all ex-Catholic, but that's another story.
Not today.
And so, what will happen is, as we looked at last week, the Mashiach Negev will get a lethal wound. He'll be resurrected. In fact, he'll be beheaded, and his head will be stuck back on, and he'll come back to life. And we're being shown a lot of beheadings now. They're increasing in the beheadings. Beheadings are becoming the norm. Beheading is actually quite a humane way to be killed as long as it's quick. It's slow, it's the most inhumane way to be killed. And when he wakes up from when he's resurrected, the Mashiach again is not very happy. So he then gives credence for the false prophet to help him animate this statue. And they will coax it to come up and stand in the doorway of the temple, the rebuilt third temple, and it'll be the same scale as the door. And some people will say, well, that's why the door of the temple is so large, because look how big the inhabitants is, this manifestation is. And then he'll come out and he will cause all that will not bow down to him to go through all sorts of issues, widely, and he will call down fire from the heavens in revenge for the humiliation that the dark forces suffered when Elijah put the prophets of Baal to death on that very interesting day. And you can see here in Paleo Hebrew, the reason why I've got images, that's the emet, which is truth on the golem. You may not see that. I just put that there for dramatic effect. I don't think they're going to be stupid enough to leave the letters visible on this forehead. But here in Paleo Hebrew, the shape of the tav is a cross. Right? So if you receive the cross of Jesus on your forehead, you'll be okay. So everybody will be receiving his crucifixes, either on the forehead or the forearm, and we'll go, yeah, I'm really his now, I'm his child now, I've got this cross on my forehead. And I can participate in the economy too. You can't. If you don't have the cross of salvation on your forehead, you can't buy or sell. Look how good I am. Yeah? So it's going to be hard. Like when some of you realise you can't pay the rent anymore, you can't get your car serviced, you're not sure where you're going to get your next meal, and you've got kids to worry about, you watch how your faith is going to be put to the test. Some of you will walk. Some of you will put the mark on, heaven forbid, and some of you won't. Some of you will travail like Kiefer did and stick with it. Let's stick with it. This is interesting. In Greek manuscript, when you come to the passage that is numeric is 660 and 660 and 600, 666. In this Chestabadian papyri, it actually looks like Arabic on the side, and it can be, you can derive some Arabic saying venerating Allah, which is interesting. And also, it's believed that the phonetic sounding of the Greek letters here, chi, z, and stigma, have the sound Jesus, which is very interesting. I've read arguments against that being 100% correct. We've also read studies that are really spot on, I think. The jury's out with me, but I thought I'd share it anyway. So that's interesting there, because we could do a whole study on how that aligns with Arabic and how that's got some connection with Islam as well. But you've got to remember, the term Jesus means many different blasphemous things. It doesn't just mean one. So don't argue. I don't want to find you any of you arguing. So I believe the beast is going to be Islamic because this says something in Arabic, and one of them says, no, I believe it's going to be a Catholic Pope. You could both be right, so you don't have to argue. You know what I mean? That's what you've got to realise. You could actually both have truth there. Not saying that truth's two different things. It can only ever be one thing. Truth can only ever be one thing, but it can mean dual things at the same time. We learned that there is a connection between the image of the beast that is given life and the accompanying mark put on the foreheads of those who worship the beast in chapter 13. The beast, being a golem, receives truth, the final letter being a tav, constructed by the three valves. We've just looked at that before. Its worshippers also received the final letter, which in Paleo-Hebrew is the form of the cross. There it is there, so a little diagram there. In Babylonian Hebrew, in Babylonian, its uniform language, the cross is upright, like the cross that you're traditionally used to when you walk into a church.
It was a mark of Mammuz as well, the sun deity. Mammuz, the sun deity.
Tammuz, yes.
Tammuz.
Yeah, Tammuz, that's the tough. You're wearing the seal of Tammuz if you wear it. Yeah. That's why you always see a sun on a cross, is because you worship Tammuz on the venerable day of the sun. So the sun is literally on the cross, not this, you can say that in a different way. So yeah, it's really interesting stuff. It's very clever. You're going to have to keep your wits about it. You're going to have to keep constantly studying, keep getting good lessons and teachings and reviewing them. Remember, it's about review. You listen once, but it's how much you're reviewing of what you're learning today, whether it sticks. You can go home and just play a Sega video game and it'll go in one ear out the other. The idea is the review. Anything here that you might understand, I can guarantee you in a day you're going to forget it. No matter what I teach here today. It is, if you go back and really review it, you've got half a chance. Now this is why we shouldn't wear the mark. For those of you that want to have a look at this again, in Revelations 14, 9 and 10 it says, a third angel followed them, and they said in a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and its image and receives its mark on their forehead or their hand, their yod, they too will drink the wine of Yahweh's fury, which has been poured out full strength into the cup of his wrath. They will be tormented with burning sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and of the Lamb. Revelations 14, 9 and 10. Okay, so I guess I'm not getting that mark. Now, within our faith, seals, signs, and signatures of Yahweh are rampant. This is a sign. Why? So that I'll remember to do all the commandments of Yahweh and not follow after the lust of my heart and my eyes. This is a sign. These are a sign. I can see them in my periphery when I wear them properly. The mezuzah on the doorpost of your house when you walk in and out of your dwelling and you touch it and it juts out from the wall and it's got texture, it's a sign. The blood on the doorpost of your homes when you do Pesach is a sign. There are so many signs, it's not funny. You being here, why are you here? Are you here because you want to have a social and hang out and you haven't seen me for a week and you want to catch up again? No, you are here because of Yahweh. That's it. So, if you're doing that, what does it say in our liturgy? It will be a sign between me and you. Now, you can come in for an hour and go home and then mow the lawn. You can come in for the liturgy, you can come in for the teaching and miss the liturgy, or you can stay here and stay within the confines of the anointing. I'll tell you what, because if you cut the day short and you go home, you'll get a phone call, you'll get Jehovah's Witness knocking on your door, you might want to sneak in a bit of washing. Staying together for this whole day really rims the day for all it's worth. Because it's a day where you get the Ruach and the Spirit in double measure, and you're not going to get that Spirit with bedside assembly. Part of observing the Sabbath is the holy convocation. That means coming together and checking in with the community once a week. You have to observe this. To observe the Sabbath correctly, you refrain from buying and selling. You meet together in a holy convocation. And what's the third one? Sorry? No, I forgot the third one. But there's three. It'll come to me in a second. But there's three strands. There's three main strands of observing the Sabbath. Refraining from buying and sell. Rest. It's not going to sleep. I don't expect everybody to get here and just bring a blanket and a pillow and go to sleep. Nowhere in the scriptures do you have anybody going to sleep on the Sabbath. Yeah. It's rest from your secular lifestyle, from your anything to do with you earning money, anything you do that's to do with your secular livelihood. You're resting from that. You cannot be condemned for studying the Torah so hard on Sabbath that you pass out for exhaustion. You have not desecrated the Sabbath at all. So that's not the type of rest that the scripture's talking about. So there's seals everywhere. Let's have a look at a few scriptures we've got in Revelation 7 and 3. And this is what the scriptures that they're going to capitalize on to deceive you. These are the ones they're going to pull out. Do not harm the land or the sea or the trees until we put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of our Elohim. Revelation 7 and 3. These are the scriptures they're going to pull out to get you to wear it. They say, if you don't wear it, and then they'll go to Ezekiel, then they'll go to Cain. They'll even talk about Noah being 600 years old and being spared the flood. Because the number 6 is a number that is closely associated with Messiah. It's not associated with the devil. Messiah came as a man, the Son of Man. That means, that's an archaic way of saying he came as a human being. What is the number 6 of? It's the number of a man. It is the final day of creation. It's the precipice of all the work you're putting into yourself to perfect yourself before you get your reward. So it's actually a very positive thing, the number 6. If it was a bad thing, how could Hasatan get you to wear it? You know those little things you can put on your head with the devil's horns you get from the Easter show? Can you imagine, like, some leader saying, okay, everybody's got to wear these devil horns? No one's going to wear that. No one's going to put on these novelty devil horns on their head, and you all have to go out and buy a pitchfork. Hasatan has to masquerade as an angel of light. Just notice that. It's no. He's not going to win any converts if he stands in a corner in a red spandex suit, shaking a pitchfork with horns. He's not going to get any. He's going to only win if he looks like the real deal. Remember the Spartacus effect? I talked about the Spartacus effect last week. In the famous film with Kirk Douglas, all the Spartans are rounded up and put on a hill, and the Roman general comes and he asks, who is Spartacus? Spartacus stands up, he's an honourable man, an honourable leader of men, and says, I'm Spartacus. And then his men who love him all stand up one at a time and say, I'm Spartacus, I'm Spartacus. And the general doesn't end up knowing who he is. That's what Hasatan wants to do to you. He wants to bring out so many options and you don't know what day it is. You don't know what day it is. If I can't hide a truth, says Hasatan, I will throw up so many smoke screens that you won't see what it is. Right? And most people, they don't even look for it. They're not even engaged in a process of looking for truth. They're just going and watching movies and hanging out. And every now and then they might have a bit of a look on the back of a chips packet to see what their philosophy is going to be. Revelation 9:4 says, and they were told not to harm the grass or the earth or any plant or tree, but only those people who did not have the seal of Elohim on their foreheads. Wow! They didn't realise that this seal was so important for us to have. We've been so mystified by the mark of the beast that we don't even notice the emphasis in Scripture in the time of Revelations that we're actually meant to be receiving a mark. We've got a mark coming. And then I looked, and there before me was the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. Revelation 7 and 3. The priestly garment consists of a band that goes around the head, which says Kadosh La Yahweh, which means holy to Yahweh. I belong to Yahweh. I'm his property. And Yahweh is a jealous Elohim. And if you belong to Yahweh, then Hasatan has no claim to you. He can buffet you with spirits, with dark forces, and you can bring upon familiar spirits that buffet you by your own ill action, but he can't actually own you and possess you and take control over you like Reagan in The Exorcist. I just had a friend went to where that was filmed and he took a photo of the stairs. But don't watch The Exorcist to try and take notes of anything that's to do with reality. There's a very good book available called Crash Goes the Exorcist. I recommend you get a hold of it and read it. It's very good. It's written from a Christian perspective, but it's pretty good. Okay, so as I said, they're going to use verses like this to try and get you to wear the mark of the beast. But that's not to say when the time comes you're going to receive the name of Yahweh on the forehead. Yeah? Your forehead, remember, is a central focal point. That's why in New Age religion, There is so much focus on the third eye, and the pineal gland or the frontal lobe of the brain is very, very important. And there is a sense, there is a type of a third eye there, but it's all in accordance with Yahweh's will and His construct, not by somebody that's hijacked it. You don't want to get the counterfeit belief in. So next time you go to a New Age shop and you see somebody in there reading tarot cards, that was somebody who had an anointing or a calling on their life to become someone that is skilled in prophecy, and they've just gone the other direction and they've used it for Hasatan. And the rapper Eminem and all these rappers, they have a calling on their lives to be psalmists, but instead they go in the other direction and they sell records and put blasphemous things on them. So, you know, if a lot of them knew that was the case, maybe some of them will go, oh, I didn't know that, rather than us telling them, oh, you're evil, you're going to go to hell, stop what you're doing. No, you keep what you're doing, but you turn it onto the good side. Right? Popular culture has been something that has really misinformed us about what the Mark of the Beast is. The band Iron Maiden in 1982 released an album. It was their third studio album called The Number of the Beast, and it was their highest selling album, and they sold an estimated 14 million albums worldwide. I was just reading the lyrics to the title track, Mark of the Beast, before I came into the service today, and it's terrible. And not because it's blasphemous, but it's just really, these guys have no idea. And it's just like a 4-year-old wrote it. I think the first verse has a passage from Revelation 13, and then they just write whatever's in their minds, and that's just woeful. I recommend you read it. There's no swearing on it, but these guys absolutely wouldn't have a clue what Mark of the Beast was. I remember watching, because I used to be a bit of a metalhead in my younger days, and I remember watching a documentary on Iron Maiden, and they said, we're going to tell you where we got the number 666 and the inspiration from the song. And they said it was the bill that they got back from one of their guitars being repaired. It was 666 pounds. And they went, oh yeah, let's do a song about that. I was so disappointed.
That's what I said.
There's not much going on with these guys. They did a bit too much headbanging, I think. But yeah, so popular film back in 1976. Some of you probably remember there was a movie that was released called The Omen. This movie was about a man who adopted a child whose mother died during birth with his wife, and he called him Damien, and all sorts of terrible things were happening as the kid grew up, and as the kid became a teenager and went to boarding school, he noticed one day that he had the number 666 on his hairline somewhere. This movie grossed 4 million, how do I say that? 273,886. I don't know, however you say that. That's too many numbers for me to say that properly.
4.2 million.
Thank you. Yeah. And its opening weekend was 60 million, nearly 70 million, nearly 61 million domestically. And it was filmed on a fairly tight budget of about 2.8 million, which is nothing today. This film was the fifth highest grossing movie of 1976. So popular culture has kind of gone down a more ominous, dark sort of aspect of the Mark of the Beast, and attributing the number 666 with something that is evil. Not true. The number 666 equals life. It's actually a good number. And when they're trying to convince you to take it, they're telling you truth at that stage. It is a good number, but we're told not to take it like that. Okay? Yahweh will decide whether he's going to mark you to be spared or mark you for destruction. The whole idea of Revelations is to separate the goats from the sheep. He's separating Yahweh's going through, and he's separating the people that are his, and he's separating the people that are Hasatan's. And so there's a process by which he needs to see clearly who is honestly his and who is honestly not his. Amen? So we know that the mark is a tav. So what is it? Yeah, we looked at that. That's the verse in Ezekiel 9, 4 and 6 where Yahweh says, but do not touch anyone who has the tav, who has the mark. And they're going to be exploiting these passages to get you aware of it. Big question that probably is on everybody's minds is where does the barcode, where does the chip, and where does the Sunday worship fall into play? Well, originally it was believed that the Mark of the Beast was the barcode. Then the barcode fell out of favour, And then it became more commonly believed that it was the microchip, which I was in favour for quite a few years. I thought, yeah, it's definitely going to be the microchip. Dallas, can I just get you shut that door? Thank you. Sorry? Oh, yeah. Maybe you can just pull it to a little bit. The Seventh-day Adventists, they fairly unanimously believe that the mark that's hard is an actual something that you observe, and you are disqualified for being acting in the economy, because remember it says here that does not wear the mark when either buy nor sell. If you're not prepared to observe Sunday worship, then you can't participate in the economy or get the benefits that people are that are doing that. Now, I will tell you now, none of these things are the mark of the beast. However, they may come in. You may have the Sunday worship come in. I've never said it's not going to come in. It looks like it could. They could make it martial law, but it's not the mark of the beast. It will be an accompanying act if it comes in. I'm not saying it's going to come in either. I don't know. I'm not a prophet. I'm just like you. I'm not a scholar. I don't know, but it might come in. But it's not the mark of the beast. The chip, the microchip. Now, interesting here about the microchip is the best place to have it is in the wrist or the forehead, because the body is the most warm at those 2 points, or has some type of electromagnetic field, something. It's just, and what's interesting, if you're in a cold climate country like Antarctica, the places that are most accessible apart from going to the toilet is the hand and the face. And so to have the chip in the forehead, you walk into a shop, the scanner picks up your chip, and the people straight away know that this person is a person that's involved in the economy. They're not a thief, they're registered, and they can potentially buy something. And if it's not going to be on the forehead, when you walk in the shop, you hold your hand up and you'll be able to buy stuff, and the money will come straight off your account. You don't need to carry a wallet. Now, in nightclubs, where in some parts of the world where some of the women are wearing next to nothing anyway, and they couldn't bring in a person with them even if they wanted to, some nightclubs are offering discounts. And this was a while back, I think it was in Glasgow, where you would get the chip, have your bank details and medical records on there, and you could go up to the bar and they swipe you whenever you bought a drink. And this meant that women could keep turning up wearing next to nothing, and guys could do whatever the guys do. Is that going to happen? Has that been happening? Yes. Is that going to be something that the dark forces are going to capitalise on? Yes. Is it specifically the mark of the beast? No, not from a Hebraic perspective. Will it be related to the mark of the beast in some way? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. See, what happens is we have a reverence for technology. This is how these things come about. And we think Yahweh has this same reverence for technology. And he doesn't. Technology to Yahweh is just a vain toy. It is just something that allows you to do something with a lot more ease. In fact, if you look at the English word technique, magic, and technology, they all share a common etymology, they all share a common root word. Somebody that achieves something by way of magic, that is by way of summoning power that is not in accordance with Yahweh's laws, to achieve something by way of worship of another deity that's fallen from Yahweh's ranks, is relegated to sorcery or magic. Someone that actually constructs a mechanism using science, that is technology. And that's the way we get the word technique. There's a technique you can adopt to allow you to achieve something. And magic or technology gives you that very technique and gets you to do it. Yahweh doesn't use technology. You're living in an environment where technology is changing about, say, maybe 5 years' time. That laptop will probably be about this big. I'm seeing phones now that you can hook up to a projector, and those projectors are about this big now. Eventually, everything's going to disappear to nothing. Already, when you walk in a room, you can go lights, the lights will come on. So technology has already created an environment that by your voice, you can create things. What do you read when you open the book of Genesis, the first chapter of the book of Genesis? Yahweh said, Yahweh said, Yahweh said. Vocal sounds have creative power. And technologically we're moving towards that same thing that was always done before, in that everything is achieved by way of utterance, a vocal sound. You clap your hands, the lights go off. You see people walking down the street with these phones in their ears, and you walk on that side of them, you don't see the phone, and they look like they're talking to themselves. So a telephone is like a very crude Royal Kakodesh experience. A security guard that sits watching 12 TV monitors at once is a very crude form of omnipresence. Omnipresence means being everywhere at once. Now, we can see a security guard with all the TV monitors to a degree. He has awareness of about 10 places at once. Not as much as he has the awareness of where he's sitting, but he can see to a degree. And Yahweh operates like that. That's why he says, go down there and see if what they're telling me is true. And that's why he sends the angels down to go and have a look and come back and report to him. Like a sheriff, a deputy reporting back to the sheriff. Sunday worship law, like microchip may happen, but these will be accompanying acts of the beast rather than direct references to the tar, seal, or signature of the beast. Our perspective is Hebraic and not Western. Now, when we see the abomination that makes desolate standing in the holy place, the word says for us to make our way to the rocks, to the hills, to the mountains. Those of you that know the work of Stan Deo, he has a book out called Prudent Places. He's a very nice man. He's lived in Australia for several years. I've several of his books. I've been in contact with him via correspondence over the web a few years ago now. I was trying to get him to do a preface for one of my books, write a preface, but he never got around to it. He's a busy man. He's quite old now. And he has a book called Prudent Places, which says safe places to live. And I'm going to save you a lot of money. There's going to be no safe place on the face of the earth except Petra, which is in Jordan. Because what does the word say? The word says that the high places will be made low and the low places will be made high. The land will become like a rough sea, unless you're in that sheepfold, which is in Petra, modern day Petra, referred to as Selah, which means rock. And how do we know that? Well, we look at the typology of the book of Daniel as it refers to Antiochus. Once the image of the beast reveals itself, stand in the holy place, we're to flee to the mountains. Matthew 24:15-16. When Antiochus invades the glorious land of Israel, according to Daniel 8, 9, 11, 41, the land of Edom, Moab, and Ammon will escape out of his hand. So already that's giving us a clue. And guess what? Historically, Nazarenes, that's who we are. Those of you that have visited us for the first time, we are Nazarene Israelites. We're the real deal. We might be a bit ad hoc and still be finding our feet in terms of how we do things, but we're not Christians. We're not Jews. We are Netzarim, which means Nazarenes. The overarching term for us, you could call us Israelites. And we are the ones that follow the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the branch, King Messiah Yeshua, the Netzer. That's why it says he shall be called a Nazarene. And we have used Petra as a place of refuge quite a few times in history. We used the Petra as a place of refuge during the Roman rebellion the Jewish rebellion against the Romans, where the Jews got annihilated in the time of Bar Kokhba revolt. We hid at Petra. Isaiah 16:1 is a modern day Petra in Jordan. Salem means rock. Kedar, according to Isaiah 42:11, the people which are the Bedouins or the inhabitants of the rock, also referred to in Isaiah 42:11. I should delete one of those, shouldn't I? I have been to Petra. I was there in 2008, and the Bedouins that were there, they're the ones that are going to be there when we eventually turn up, and they become our servants once we get there. And they're very lovely people, and they live there. They're very poor, but they're people that very much that are connected to that land, like the Aboriginals connected to Australia, Petra is in the wilderness, referred to in Matthew. We know all that. Believers at Selah, at Petra, according to Isaiah 16:1, which means the rock, are hidden, according to Isaiah 16:3, from the spoiler or the extortioner, according to Isaiah 16:4. I'd have Isaiah 42, Isaiah 16, Isaiah 16 underlined after this lesson today as reference to support. When people ask you why are you going to Petra, why can't you just go to the Blue Mountains and hide? You need to be able to support if you can, from Scripture. If you can't, do the best you can. It's always better to be able to support from Scripture. If you can't remember the address, remember the phrase and Google it, and then you get the address come up. That's what I do all the time. And negative Messiah does the same thing. It's about a mirror image of what Antiochus Epiphanes does to a certain extent. We learned that many key events which happened historically with Antiochus Epiphanes, prophesied in the book of Daniel, will happen prophetically during the reign of the negative Messiah. Are we all clear on that? Yeah? We've gone over that fairly extensively now. So part 5, speaking life. Now this next segment is going to talk about where name magic actually came from. Abracadabra, all that sort of stuff. All these things that you see around you, all these various disciplines and intellectual pursuits, various forms of witchcraft, they all stem from one true original thing, which was the faith of Yahweh, which is our faith. Our faith goes back to Adam. So don't be intimidated by all these other religions that have these big cathedrals made of stone. Our faith is older than theirs and it goes back to Adam. Never stand back on that. So the creation of the golem requires the utterance of one of Yahweh's names. Sorry? Can you?
You've got the scared name.
Scared no movement.
Scared name movement.
Sorry, it's the
No, thank you. And that wouldn't have picked that up as a that wouldn't have picked that up as a spelling mistake.
No, no.
Is that right? Oh, no.
Yes,
S-I-S-I-C.
That's good. So often we'll get referred to as your sacred name. You belong to one of those sacred name cults. And that's interesting because usually that criticism comes from a Christian. But wait till you read this. But the reason why we're looking at sacred name is because everything. I just want to turn off. I just want to listen to me for a second. When you change a name, you're doing something very drastic. You're changing the whole reference point. People say, oh, names don't matter. Names matter. If you are being intimate with your wife, and during the throes of passion, you know, that crescendo, and you call out the name of your last girlfriend, you come back and tell me that names don't matter. Names matter. Not only that, but the pronunciations matter. Pronunciation shows that you're on your game and you care about what you're saying. If I slur or miss, it could be attributed to laziness. Maybe it's I'm just tired. Why am I tired? Maybe I should be getting more sleep. Maybe I should manage my time better. You can't say, I'm tired, that's my excuse. Well, why are you tired? Why? You know, you can go back and say, oh, it's not my fault, I was tired. Well, why are you Anyway, that's another subject. But even the pronunciations are important. When you say Hanukkah, you have that thunder. Because the language of Yahweh is like thunder and lightning. That's why when you say that ch, you try and get that little bit of a cracking, Hanukkah, you say Hanukkah with a H. Sure, you can do that, but if you say the cracking sound, it gives you that power in the speech. But names matter. Names matter in that you invoke them. Remember, we're familiar with the verses, those who call on the name of Yahweh shall be saved. And that there is no other salvation in any other name. That's pretty clear. I'd keep my eye on that, and I'd be very curious to find that during the course of the ensuing generations, if the Hasatan hasn't tried to divert that name to something else by way of Chinese whisper. That's all you have to do. And if you're with a religious movement that have gone off on that tangent Chinese whisper, politely tell your pastor what you believe. Ask him permission to leave. You never leave a congregation of your own volition. You always ask for permission. He'll want you to leave because he'll get sick of you singing Yeshua when everybody else sings Jesus when you're in your praise and worship. And he won't be able to trust you because whenever you're talking to other congregants, you're filling stuff in their brains that is going to make his day bad. So he'll be happy for you to go. So to ask him permission is easy and it's respectful. And he'll always say, oh, I remember Tom, he was very polite. He actually asked me to leave. He didn't just all of a sudden not be here the next week. Amen? So names matter. And if we found that we're on that tangent, on that Chinese whisper out left field, we join ourselves to a group of people that have stayed the course. And we know that historically Nazarene groups did exist and never Romanized. in Romania and in Iran. There was still, and in Ethiopia, I believe, and some other places in Asia, there were groups of people who would go back to the original Nazarene faith who never Romanized, who never became Greco-Roman. Change the word church. Translators changed the word ecclesia, which means congregation, to the word church. By doing that, they created an entirely new religion. Paul came to establish the church. No, he didn't. You're either ignorant or you're a liar. You might be a good person. You might be really good to your kids. You might give charity. You might carpool. You might never swear. You might be giving food to the poor and the homeless. But you're equipping people to be more ready for Gehenna than you are. So we've got to be very careful. It's important that names stay the same and they're revered as sacred and true. Some Christians have accused our movement of being a sacred name cult. However, the sacred name movement, SNM, started with the Church of God. These are an offshoot of Seventh-day Adventists in Christianity, propagated by Clarence Orville Dodd from the 1930s, which claims that it seeks to conform Christianity to its Hebrew roots. The Hebrew roots movement is Christian in origin.
Yes, it is.
We are not Hebrew roots, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you dare go out to somebody and say, I went to a Hebrew roots group today. No, you didn't. Absolutely you didn't. The problem I have with the Hebrew roots is what's wrong with the whole tree of the Hebrew roots. When you find you turn into somebody and say, oh, we're Hebrew roots, that's usually because the trunk and the trees and the leaves are looking like something else. What part of Hebrew is so bad that you can't be a part of it? You're all Hebrew. The tree, the trunk, the roots, the fruit, everything. Hebrew. To say you're Hebrew roots is to minimise what you're doing. And it's not us, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, it goes on. I'll post these out to everybody. We're going to keep moving on. If Nazarene Israelite maintains a constant effort in his studies, he will find that the tetragrammaton name of Yahweh, tetragrammaton is a Greek word. There it is. It comes from tetra, which means four, gramma means letter, and it's four letters. And it's the salvation name of Yahweh, and it's used 6,800 times in the Tanakh alone. And it is being superimposed by God, Lord, capital L-O-R-D, and we're part of the restoration of all things and the revival that's going on, and we're having that restored. But we can see that in the sacred name movement, they were actually restoring Yahweh anyway. The best known distinction of the sacred name movement is advocacy to use the sacred name, i.e. to reconstruct the proper names of God in Israel, the use of the original Hebrew name. So Christianity is trying to do the right thing. But their motives today is they want to curtail people leaving church. So if it means that people are going to leave in droves, then fine, you can wear your tallit. You can blow your shofar. We can have a Torah scroll down the front if it'll mean you'll stay. We can preach appreciation of Torah. But ladies and gentlemen, that's not good enough. You want the whole unadulterated truth. How would you be if you married your wife and before you're going to get down to things on the night of your wedding, an angel appears and said, oh, by the way, she's to keep herself veiled for the rest of your relationship. So you've got to kiss her through a veil. You've got to touch her through a veil. You've got to caress her through a veil. You wouldn't stand for that. You want the veil off. So why would you stay in shallow waters? Why would you want to stay in shallow waters if it's something you love? If it's something you love, you find people have to say, Susanna, you better slow down a bit. You're going too fast. Oh, okay, sorry. That's a sign that somebody's really into something, not somebody who willingly wants to just paddle around in shallow waters and just sort of have a poke at a religion. But that's what a lot of people are doing. They're kind of poking around with their religion. You wouldn't do it with your cult, yet the real religion, you'll do that with it. That's interesting. So there's the 42-letter name and the 72-letter name of Yahweh. The 72-letter name is uttered once every year on the Day of Atonement, on Yom Kippur. And it's uttered by the high priest. It is also the name that animates the Golem. when the word emet is truth is written across the forehead. The golem could not have been created any earlier than the time of Enoch, because as it says in Genesis 4:26, man began to call upon the name of Yahweh. So it isn't until that time spoken about in Genesis 4 that the name of Yahweh began to be made known. This is because all the methods of advocating a human-shaped golem hinged on the correct pronunciation of either a combination of the Tetragrammaton, the 42-letter name, or the 72-letter name of Yahweh. Some believers may accuse this teaching of entering into abracadabra territory, with presenting a heavy emphasis on what appears to be name magic in relation to the Torah. This is an understandable concern, especially if a reader has a strong traditional Christian mindset and a negative outlook towards Kabbalah.
Ooh, come
Most people's view of the correct pronunciation in religion to spiritual matters is chiefly dominated by an occult frame of reference due to various forms of media exposure. In reality, the studious accumulation of multiple names of Yahweh and their careful and respectful invocation for certain purposes by Jewish sages has always been completely parallel in pagan religions with their own false gods. The dark forces have no original bone in their body. Possibly an Aramaic word, abracadabra, that means I will create according to the word. Ibra means I have created. Kidibra, which means through my speech. So next time you see a magician, go abracadabra. It's a form of Aramaic which means I create that which I speak. It's interesting, isn't it? Going back to Genesis 1. So be careful what you say to one another. If you have somebody you love, tell them you love them. Tell them you adore them. Tell them how you love them. And you will be blessing them, not only spiritually but physiologically as well. Amen. The occult borrows just about everything it teaches from the truth and twists it into perverted replacement. Every false religious group, from outwardly satanic cults to widely accepted movements, follow rituals that are directly reversed, parodied, or subtly altered that originally stem from the one true faith of Yahweh. The exhaustive array of religions spanning the entire globe simply evolved from a rebellious attempt at achieving a pleasurable state via an alternative avenue. John 10:1 says, Amen, amen, I say to you, he that enters not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbs up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. That's why people take LSD and hallucinogens, ayahuasca, from the Amazonian basin as a natural hallucinogen. And if you give it to a group of people and they all sing the same song, they all have a group hallucination, which is all in real time. I've got a book on it at home by a doctor in the United States that was given funding for a little while to do an experiment on DMT, a version of that hallucinogen. And he writes down his results from various patients who received various dosages. And all of them have some type of experience with a serpent or some type of reptilian being. That's why Jim Morrison called himself the Lizard King, because he was big on LSD, all these sorts of things. It's a coiled serpent. It is a spiritual experience you're wanting to have when you take drugs, not according to the way you meant to try and do it. That's all it is. People that take drugs, they're trying for a spiritual experience. They want to go in by some other way. And you will have Hitler, he took peyote. He took the drug in North America that the mutants take. Believe it or not, the origin of name magic comes from the Torah itself. Correct pronunciation of Hebrew words and names is vital to one's quest to become familiar with the language of creation. No different to using words in everyday life. One can cause mishap and confusion without correctly executing a correct saying of a word in any language. If I call somebody across the road to avoid a truck hitting them, I want to make sure I get little Johnny's name right. And I want to say, Johnny, move. And end up saying Daryl, and the kid not realise who I've spoken to when he gets hit by the bus. Names on the battlefield matter. Names and signs. If you're on the battlefield in the jungle, your hand gestures need to be spot on. Your guy you have in front of you needs to be able to signal to you, and that hand gesture has to be, you don't have, I think he meant advance. Oh, I don't know. No different in civilian life. Say what you mean. Yeshua, our Messiah, is let your yes be yes and your no's be no's. Simple. Say what you mean. I know it's simple, but they're doing it. Sometimes they're difficult, isn't it? Alright. Such an objection is born. Where am I up to? Yeah. Okay. Scripture itself constantly emphasizes focus on Yahweh's name. Abba, bring glory to your name. I have manifested your name. Protect through your own name those whom you have given me. If you look through your own Bible, you'll constantly see reference to Yahweh Shem. That's Hebrew for name, Shem. And maybe, I wonder if you've sometimes read that and said, why doesn't it just say, bring glory to yourself? Why does it bring glory to your name? You know? Why doesn't it just say, I have manifested your presence, your essence? Why does it say name? You know, why is this emphasis on name? There is no line of demarcation between the power of Yahweh and the power of his name or divine letters that he spoke. Why? He is Echad. He is one, which wove all creation together. Opening of Genesis describes the creation process which he entered into with exacting utterances that bring things into being. Yahweh is Echad, and his names describe aspects of character and purpose, and they are memorial for all time. Acts 4:12, neither is there a salvation in any other, for there is no other name under the Shemayim under heaven given among men whereby one must be saved. In the light of this, we see that there is a specific name that unlocks our bondage and frees us from sin. This name, the Tetragrammaton, the four-letter name, salvation name of Abba, is clearly mandated in Scripture. Everyone who calls on the name of, I've got Lord there, but it should be Yahweh, will be saved. Romans, gosh, this needs...
You must have got tired.
It must have been late.
You were getting tired.
Romans 10:13, quoting Prophet Joel, everyone who calls on the name of Yahweh will be saved. There's nothing new about the New Testament. Over 90% of the New Testament, the so-called New Testament, is quotes and indirect quotes from the Old Testament, which we call it tonight because it happened to be new. There are many names of Yahweh, each when uttered correctly with sufficient kavana. Somebody tell me what kavana is? We studied it here.
Intent.
It's spiritual concentration. Intent. Carriage and power. What did we do the liturgy here today? We did that liturgy. David led us through a liturgy. Every week you face the challenge, and I have a challenge. I look after the kids half, right? But the challenge is to block out your environment and focus on every word that you're saying in unity with a group of people. Because remember, the Ruach HaKodesh didn't fall until everybody was all together in the one place of one mind and one accord. The best part, I say to people, you want to come, if you can only come during the best part of the day, it's not during the teaching, it's during the liturgy. Because that's our only point in the day where we have the most potential, no matter where we are in our walk, to all be on the same page. Why? Because we're reciting the same things together, aloud and in unison, and we're all thinking about the same things at the same time. That is the most likely time during our time together every Sabbath that Yeshua's going to walk in here and go, hey, you guys rock. Not now, not before, not when we do the praise and worship. Well, maybe praise and worship is similar, but when we're reciting the liturgies together, the same words, we're thinking about the same things, it's all at the same time, there's power in that. Amen. The exact pronunciation of the 42-letter name is believed to be unknown. The letters of the name are derived from the 1st century. I'll send these out, you just can read those because I need to push on. The origin of the 42-letter name is also referred to in Talmudic literature, though the very influence of sage Rashi quotes that it was not given to us in the Torah. So that means that this is something that has been extrapolated by learned men, and there's nothing in the Torah that specifically states, oh, you're about to read the 42-letter name now, go! You know, you're not going to find that. So where's the 42-letter name in Scripture? You'll pick up the 42-letter name and show them the sequence, and they go, well, how do you know it's that? You can't show them. You can't say. But people say, well, where does it say that I've got to do a Rev Shabbat in Scripture, I've got to light candles? You can't show them anywhere in Scripture. But through deductive reasoning, there are things that we are commanded to do that aren't spoon-fed to us, like thou shalt not murder. These are things that you, by putting a whole lot of text together, reading Psalms, reading David's emphasis on having clean hands and a pure heart. Nowhere in the Scripture does it say to wash our hands. But through deductive reasoning of the text, we know that the object lesson of washing our hands is related to putting us on a path of rendering our heart scoured and cleaned and cleansed. Amen. So if you're, where does it show that there's no exact verse? But David has about 5 verses scattered across Psalms which emphasize, and he's not being metaphorical, he's talking about physically clean hands, the 72 letter or 72 letter part name. Now we do the 42 letter name every Shabbat when we go to your place, don't we? Anabakah. I've just been going to Dave's house for every Shabbat, and Dave has a custom at his home where he does a song which is the 42 letter name Son. And as you do it, he does it to a YouTube video, and the video tells you what it's actually doing to you as you're reading the song, and I'll invariably read out the English. And it aligns your whole being. If you get a chance to go to Dave's house for Shabbat, go. Because doing that song, by the end of it, you feel like you've actually just kind of been cleansed. And so in a sense, you're uttering the 42 letter name in the process of the song. And when I get things settled down with me, and I go back to the Rosh Shabbat of my home, Willing, I'll see if I can bring that custom over into our observance at home Friday nights. Friday night is your night. Start sorting Friday night out with the candles and getting ready for Shabbat. Everything else will fall into place. I go on here and talk about the the utterance of these complex names could come as at a close of a highly detailed ritual, though the process of creating a golem varied would likely have involved uninterrupted 36-hour stint. So if anybody of you feel like going out and making a golem, I think you've got to fast for a week at the very minimum. It's a 36-hour process. There's certain breeding that's required, purification process, virgin soil that has been unhewn or unsifted by clay, and full knowledge of the Hebrew language, and utterance of incantations to actually create the golem. So it's not going to happen yet. None of us are near a level, not that we should be doing it anyway. The late American Orthodox rabbi and physicist Aryeh Kaplan, who was known for using physics background to analyze Torah, David, you probably know about this guy, describes the process of making a golem. An initiate should not do it alone. He should always be accompanied by 1 or 2 colleagues. The golem must be made of virgin soil, taken from a place where no man has ever dug. The soil must be kneaded with pure spring water, taken directly from the ground. If this water is placed in any kind of vessel, it can no longer be used. The people making the golem must purify themselves totally by engaging in this activity, both physically and spiritually. While making the golem, they must wear clean white vestments. One must not make any mistake or error in pronunciation. Any interruption whatsoever may occur. There's a story of an account of creating a golem going bad, and the rabbis involved actually sunk into the earth. What I'm showing you here is a little bit of a window into the process that Yahweh went through creating Adam. And so the creation of the golem is kind of reenacting that by unlawful means, that process. Now, I've just said that reenacting a golem is unlawful. It depends. Now remember, Abraham was told to go up and offer up his son Isaac. So is child sacrifice part of Torah? Is child sacrifice part of Torah? How does that work?
It's the children of mine.
Yeah. How does that work? One of the most pivotal points in the Tanakh of showing our faith and our trust in Yahweh is based on Abraham going and offering up his own son on Mount Moriah. Whether you believe he went through it or not, his intention was the same. Keep that in mind as we look at this. The pronunciation of the 72 letter name of Yahweh is uttered once every year on Yom Kippur by the high priest. Since the destruction of the second temple, the priesthood went into hiding, and once in every generation, the pronunciation was tested by constructing a small golem no larger than the palm of the hand. Under strict supervision, the ritual for constructing the golem was enacted, and the word emet was engraved on the image's forehead. The eligible high priest would then carefully utter the name, the 72 letter name. If the golem grew warm and began to twitch, the high priest would erase the letter aleph, making the word met, which means death, which destroyed the golem, and the pronunciation was deemed intact for another generation, so that the priesthood could be restored. The correct name would be spoken on the day of atonement.
Wow.
Everything comes back to Torah. I'm going to just finish on this. This is stuff that is thought-provoking, and may cause you to look at things when you go home very differently. You ready? And some of you have seen these before, and I really like them. They're just interesting. Fallen angels were the first beings en masse to mishandle creation and manipulation mechanics of Yahweh's Torah. Does everybody agree with that? Yeah. That's why hell is overkill. It wasn't meant for you. Hell wasn't meant for human beings, ladies and gentlemen. It was meant for angels. You were never meant to go there. In this walk, you are not to walk around with a fear of going to hell. You are to walk around with a love of Yahweh in your heart and have a reverential fear when Hasatan brings the idea of committing a sin into your view and starts to try and entice you with it. Then you bring up the fear of where that can lead you then. That's why the beginning of wisdom is the fear of Yahweh. But on the same token, we're to have this love for Yahweh that just drowns out all fear. But that's mainly fear of what man can do to us. A limited essence of Yahweh still resides in them, in fallen angels, as it does all living, all things by virtue of life remaining in the vessel. So Adolf Hitler has to be given life from Yahweh from moment to moment. The people that burnt that Jordanian pilot, they are given life by Yahweh from moment to moment to do misdeeds or to do good deeds. And it is all wrought by Yahweh's will. Psalm 105 tells us what the root of anti-Semitism is. What's the cause of anti-Semitism? No, us. Why? Because Psalm 105 tells us Yahweh brings about anti-Semitism on us. It's plainly written about in the text. Yahweh has the nations start to loathe us. That's why the dislike towards Israel doesn't make sense. Israel don't carry on like ISIS do and Hamas do. Imagine if Israel were doing what these terrorist organisations were doing today. The world would wipe Israel off the face of the earth and not even take a breath. But even with Israel sitting pretty and kind of only retaliating when they're getting missiles poured down on them, the world hates them and tends to try and, ISIS, they're misunderstood. You kidding me? We're still tiptoeing around Islam in this country? That's crazy. Marketplace was an Islamic terrorist attack. Practice saying that in the mirror. It was done under the banner of Islam. Whatever sect of Islam you want to talk about, I don't care. It's Islam. People are still treading on eggshells because it's supernatural, this anti-Semitism. People don't like you because Yahweh brings that feeling upon people because we're not getting ourselves up and doing what He wants us to do. So anti-Semitism comes by way of Yahweh funneling us back to the promised land. So He gives you hit there until you go back to the promised land, or He kills you where you stand. It's a hard thing to say. It's not very PC, but there you go. There you have it. You can yell at me afterwards. So what do we look at? Okay, so fallen angels directly and indirectly taught the misuse of the mechanical and technical aspects of Torah to men under the guise of different mystical paths. They also attempted to present the twisted form of Torah to new initiates. The 12 watches, 12 of the original watches defected, and these watches had expertise in certain areas and they were meant to actually show man in their time. But what they did is they withdrew from their posts and they began, the fallen angel that was to teach Tubal Cain how to fashion metal instruments into farming tools, then decided to show him how to make tools for war and to make jewelry, to make ladies even more beautiful and to entice the men to it. Not that there's anything wrong with jewelry, there's not. But they got mankind, enticed mankind to do bad things with their abilities. There was an angel that was well versed, a watcher, who knew all about the stars, and his role was to watch over man as he learnt his knowledge of the stars and point him in the right direction. In this way, Kabbalah has been used as a means to an end by many disillusioned people today. This is why the Mashiach Neged and the Nabi Shekar will be able to raise up a golem. Somebody asked me today, how does the dark forces, how do they have power? Do they have power? Yes, they have power. Don't ever think that witchcraft doesn't happen. Remember the two magicians in the court of Pharaoh? They made their staffs into snakes. They couldn't make their snakes swallow like Moses's, but they made them into snakes. Yahweh is not subject to the will of fallen angels or sinful man who studies the dark arts. Yahweh is not subject to that. But if people want to go down that path, he will use them for the good of those who trust in him and are his own. So no one can do anything outside of Yahweh's will. Yahweh kills, Yahweh makes alive. Yeah? Hasatan is not the converse of Yahweh. He's not the God of evil, and Yeshua, Yahweh, is not the God of good. All Hasatan is a defrocked fallen angel. That's all he is. And that's why when we see him come down to ashes, we'll go, wow, is that all he was? Is that all he was? Now, Rabbi Lowe, did he sin by creating the Golem? I don't know. I used to think he didn't sin. Now I think, well, maybe he shouldn't have done it at all. But in the same way, Abraham was instructed to offer up Isaac. Perhaps there was something going on. All I know in the story of Rabbi Lowe of Prague is he created the Golem and it repelled the attacks, and the community was spared. If you want to say that he did the wrong thing by doing that, well, that's up to you. I'm not going to judge you on that. Don't judge me if I believe that he probably did the right thing. But he did dismantle the Golem, and it's believed that the Golem still sits in the city of Prague in the attic of the Altar New Synagogue to this very day as dust inside a coffin. The classic image of the wizard hunched over a pile of dusty books and chemicals bubbling away in the background originated from the appearance of the typical medieval Jewish sage. Their flowing robe, long white beard, constant proximity to scrolls, ointments and incenses and trinkets form the basis of the popular look of fantasy characters as J.R.R. Tolkien's Gandalf the Grey and J.K. Rowling's Headmaster Dumbledore. Whenever you see the classic image of the magician or wizard, they got it from the rabbis of the medieval era. Some of the most unlikely modern day films exhibit very orthodox Jewish themes. Take, for example, the movie Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End.
I remember that.
In the course of the film, an impending sea battle causes pirates from all over the known world to come together to determine what should be done. Two pirate elders come out, sporting long white beards, looking very Jewish, and they bring out a sacred book called the Code. As they carry it out, a look of awe envelopes all the faces of all these room full of all these rough and ready pirates as they show reverence towards this book. It's worth hiring out just to see that whole scene. Ironically, there was actually a real series of pirate codes formulated in the 17th century by buccaneers who functioned under the agreement called the Custom of the Coast or the Jamaican Discipline. This code, though it varied between groups, eventually became known as the Article of Agreement or the Pirates' Code. So even the pirates had a code of conduct. Outlaw motorcycle gangs are some of the most stringent and law-based groups in the world. I had a friend of mine come to me and say, if there was a meeting at a clubhouse called, if you were 5 minutes late, it was a $5,000 on-the-spot fine. This is an outlaw motorcycle group, and we struggle to get people here on Sabbath on time. How do you think the state of the world is? Not too good. You've got evil and wicked people having more reverence for their clubhouse meetings than people that are so-called holy turning up to their place of convocation. We need to all look at coming together here like getting a cure for cancer. How far and how regularly would you travel somewhere if you knew that it was a cure for cancer or you were going to get $1 million? Same deal. So coming, or any place where Yahweh chooses to put his name. In 2007, the Australian called Bikers Code makes them hard to crack. Biker gangs impose strict discipline, operate under rigid rules, demand fanatical loyalty, live by a code of honour, and deal ruthlessly with outside threats. They are, in the words of one senior detective, frighteningly like the police, except their motives are different. That's why Yahweh often favors Israel's enemies when sometimes they go out to war, because even though they're idolaters, they're actually more sincere with what they're doing, and they have more respect and love for one another. So sometimes Yahweh will let a battle go their way, even though they worship idols. The Triads. The Oriental Mafia group known as the Triads often implement injurious and at times fatal beatings to members who fail to observe their customs. Imagine if we had somebody in this fellowship that did something wrong and I took them out the back and I beat them up, near killing them. don't drop your mouths on the floor, but in some synagogues and when everything gets restored, there will be cases where a Torah student will be taken out the back and he'll be given the once over by fellow students at the sign off of the rabbi. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's completely Torah. There was a case where there was one Torah student in Israel, spoke over a rabbi. After the lecture, fellow Torah students took the student out the back and gave him what for. They didn't kill him or anything or break any bones, but they roughed him up. We know what Proverbs says, hold the rod, spoil the child. It's no different. No different. We need to learn that type of discipline. I'm not saying that we're going to instigate anything like that here, but we need to live like that's the level. You know what I mean? Even though we can't be brought up on charges of capital punishment under Sanhedrin law and the Torah law, we need to live as though we can. I would be less likely to commit adultery if I know that I can be brought before the charges of the Sanhedrin. So I should operate in that mindset now, like we're living in the golden age of Solomon with the temple rebuilt and everything up and running. The origin of the pointy hat, the distinctive pointy hat seen in typical depictions of wizards or mages came about with the Jews. In 1215, at the conclusion of the Fourth Lateran Council, presided over by Pope Innocent III, a decree went out invoking the command that Jews are to wear a particular clothing. Part of this clothing consisted of the pointed Jewish hat. Some Jews at this time, usually scholars, already had a custom of wearing them, probably due to edicts enforced by them by other foreign powers before that time. And that's why they're related. You can see the typical use of the image of the wizard or the sorcerer has the pointy hat. And that goes on about that. The origin of the wizard's staff. The rod or the staff is a symbol of great power. Perhaps the most famous story in history is Aaron's rod. Rabbinical literature identifies this staff as originally being used by Jacob when he crossed the Jordan, and then by Judah, who gave it to his daughter-in-law Tamar, from where it found its way to Moshe and Aaron, who both used it to perform wonders. It goes on there until it is believed to have the 10 plagues abbreviated on its shaft. The rod was apparently created by Yahweh at the close of the 6th day of creation. There's number 6 again. And there's the Midrash story describing the miraculous removal by Moshe of the rod by Moshe in Jethro's garden, where the story of Excalibur comes from, is actually a Midrashic story where Jethro puts the rod into his garden and nobody can remove it. Moshe comes along and he says, "Oh, you can shepherd my sheep if you can pull that rod out of my garden." And Moshe comes along, pulls this rod out straight away and goes, "You're going to go in the grass."
That's like in the book of Jasher.
Yeah.
Is it in the book of Jasher?
Yeah.
There you go. You should read the book of Jasher one day, shouldn't you?
Yeah.
The origin of the magic wand. Nearly finished. You guys have done really good today. I've had about 46 slides and we're finished them. The yad, literally the hand, is a Jewish ritual pointer, particularly known as a Torah pointer, used by the reader to follow text during the Torah reading from the parchment Torah scrolls. Many occultists and practitioners of witchcraft don't even know its true origin. In ancient times, the Golem would often see rabbis healing people and effecting spiritual change by reciting the Torah with a yad, with a pointer, and then they would touch the person with the pointer after they'd been touching the Torah scroll. In some cases, the point of the yad was transferred into the Torah scroll to an ill person who would become instantly healed of the affliction. And so people like Simon Magus, Simon the magician, went, "Oh yeah, I'll take that on." And it eventually evolved and grew until it was associated with something to do with the occult. When it never was, it was ours. And that's a picture depicting Yeshua raising Lazarus from his tomb with a Torah pointer, what most people would think is a wand. And there's another one from Giordano's tomb in Rome. Was Giordano still here? Was he out there? Have another depiction of Yeshua looking very goy, resurrecting Lazarus with a wand, aka a Torah pointer. So next time you see Harry Potter, you can have a bit of a smirk on your face and not go, "That's evil." It is evil because they've taken what's true and they've spun it on its head. Those things do have power, but it's a Torah pointer in the hands of a righteous man. It's a conduit, isn't it, of that power? The act of employing a specific sacred text, we've already gone through that. Abracadabra, Aramaic. the fact that most people who try to achieve such results use twisted, unhinged methods to do so has conditioned most people to think that this is to do just nonsense. There are two textures in rabbinical literature that outline the use of the Torah and Psalms. They are known as the Shimoshi Torah and the Shimoshi Tehillim. These two types of words, this means practical use of. Now, I'll finish on this. The book of Psalms. Look at the book of Psalms like going to a chemist. Let's say you go to the doctor says, writes down what you need, and you go to the chemist and you give them the prescription and they get what you need. That's what the book of Psalms is like with what you're going through right now. Except you stop going to the doctor. You just walk into the chemist and you start plucking off anything off the shelf that looks good. But what you need to do is to study the Psalms. There's books written from a Jewish perspective of what particular Psalms do for particular things. Get a hold of these books, find out which Psalms are best read for such situations, and man, you've got your prescription. That's why the recitation of Psalms might not have worked up till now for many of you, because you're just walking into the chemist without a prescription. Once you find out, for example, Psalm 119 is good for your boy, your child. There's various Psalms for people that are dying on their deathbeds. There's various Psalms for people who have a cold. There's just no end. My favourite Psalms, Tikkun HaKlal. This is 10 Psalms that are read in sequence without interruption, and they were found by a Jew by the name of, what's his name, the Breslov guy? Nachman, Rabbi Nachman. And these are very good for men to recite. And if you hang around and come and see me before we finish here today, I'll give you what those 10 Psalms are, and they're very good for men. And it is best to recite them at least 24 hours, within 24 hours after the transgression was committed. Yeah. So it's amazing, isn't it? So you'll start to use Psalms like it was meant to be used. We can go through and read the book of Psalms, but it's our job to study them and we can put them in sequence for specific purposes. This is not witchcraft. This is where witchcraft comes from. This is where witchcraft comes from. This is, you're now getting da'at, you're now getting knowledge, and you're applying chokmah, wisdom, to apply that knowledge to help you out in a practical way. What does it say here? Practical use of. Who wants to start using the scriptures in a practical way to help you with Yeshua at the helm? Now, I've never shifted Yeshua off his helm in anything what I'm saying. You're still praying Yeshua's name. You're bringing Yeshua into all of this. You don't venture anywhere without Yeshua. But this is why they're there. This is why there's so many of them. There's 150 of them. An argument could be made for another extra 5. But that's what they're there for. And that's it. That is the final part of the Christian Bible. Thank you very much. That was a long one today, but we finished that subject. Yeah, very nice. So we looked at the abomination makes desolate. We looked at what the mark was, and by way of looking at these things, we discussed some other issues that I think are really important for us to kind of shell out. Please stick around. We're going to have something to eat. Now, I know you're all very hungry. We've got plenty of food, so it'll be great, especially if you've just visited us today. Stick around and we'll have a chat with you more if you can. And we pretty much finish up when the sun goes down. So thanks again, and thanks to everybody who is online. We do have quite a few listeners on the broadcast. Thank you so much for listening to the broadcast. And travel tops to everybody.
Lights on?
Yeah.
Like you're saying, that's how come the Antichrist will take people because of the sin.
Puts a twist on it. And then there's no 10 people on the right way. all the attention goes to another one. And I guess that's what happens from the beginning. And then as it says, you change the time. So it's like there's always through everything you change things. And it brings